Hello, Steeler Nation, and welcome to the Steel Syndicate podcast with me and Mark. And we're joined by a special guest today, Chris Carter from Locked On Steelers and Steelers Now. Chris, how are you doing, my man?
Doing great, guys. Glad to be on the show. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming on, Chris. It's a pleasure to have you on here to actually talk some Steelers and also talk a bit about your journey to be where you are today and a bit about your Steelers journey, like we did with Wes as well. So, Chris, there's one question that I think everybody in Steelers Nation wants to know, right? It's the question that I think everyone once would ask you. Chris, do you sleep?
I do sleep, and in fact, more so these days than past. I think one thing that I learned after a while of doing this job and doing jobs like this is that if you don't sleep, if you let your health fade, it's going to negatively impact your work and it's going to negatively impact your life. So I've strived to have a better work-life balance, and that's been helpful. But there's been some nights where I don't sleep, and those are the wild ones.
Yeah, because you just always seem to be somewhere reporting on something or putting something together or writing something or I don't know, reporting on someone. So yeah, that's why I think people think you don't sleep at all, Chris.
Well, I appreciate that.
Now, Chris, you work for a variety of platforms, right? Do you ever mix them up by accident where you are?
When I'm really tired, that's when you might catch it. Like, there's been a couple of times where I've said Locked On Steelers, and I'm like, oh wait, this is Locked On NFL. My bad. Okay. Right. So that does happen. But I gotta say, having Locked On for audio and Steelers Now for writing and WPXI for TV and Steeler Nation Radio for Steeler Nation Radio, those are all like different things where like I'm physically doing something different, so that helps me. Like my subconscious be like, this is what you're doing.
Right. Hey, it gives me and Owen some hope, doesn't it, Owen? We can tackle this. We'll be right.
Yeah, we can maybe one
yes,
day.
Yes, you can. Yes, you guys started. I did not go to school for journalism. I did not do any of the traditional ways. I was in law school. I needed some extra money. I started blogging. I took my blog and I was consistent at it for years. I would hop on podcasts and do stuff then when people were just like, who's this random guy? But then when people kept listening to me and kept reading my work, they're like, man, he knows a few things about the Steelers. Oh, wow, I kind of right about this when he's talking about it. Then I got a job with DK Pittsburgh Sports. And then from there, I got some stuff at Channel 11 and started getting all these other opportunities. And now I am where I am today.
It's fantastic. Crazy. Yeah. Yeah, because I was going to ask you about your journey to sort of where you are today and how you got there. That sort of answered that question really well. So yeah, I know. Yeah, because it is like so many different starting points, isn't it? I know when we talked to Wes, he talked about reporting on a minor league hockey team as a way of starting out in the business. Yeah. So tell me, Chris, tell us about your actual. A lot of people know you're obviously working on Locked On and working on Steelers Now and WPXI and being a fantastic journalist reporting on the Steelers. But tell us about your Steelers fans journey. When did you become aware of the Steelers and about your favorite players from the past? Tell us a little bit about that.
I mean, I was born in Pittsburgh, so comes with the territory, like it was born into a family that was all about football. My dad coached football at a high school level, played at a high school level. My uncle Ben played at a college level. My entire family, they watched it. They talked about it on Sundays. You'd call each other when you do conference calls where you're all talking about the game at the same time. It was very much part of the Carter household was football. And of course the Pittsburgh Steelers and an admiration for how they carried themselves. So, I mean, it was just, from that, I played high school football. I got an offer to play college football, but I had a full academic scholarship. So I kind of focused on that. So, it was kind of from there. I just kind of kept with it. I always loved the game of football, the X's and O's, the chess of it. I think it's the best team sport in the world. There's no other sport where 11-on-11, that kind of physicality where if one person misses a block, the quarterback is sacked, or if, the quarterback can make the right read and the right throw, but if the wide receiver drops it, it's over. Or if on the defense, if a safety misses one assignment, it's a touchdown that you gave up. So it's such a delicate game, a complex game, but such a fascinating one that can be so exciting to watch.
Definitely, absolutely, 100% agree. 100% agree. As you were growing up, which Steelers did you particularly enjoy watching then as you were growing up watching the Pittsburgh Steelers play?
I mean, when I was a kid, I used to love watching Hines Ward. I loved his toughness, loved his physicality. I thought he always embodied what a Steeler meant. You know, he was a star, but not a superstar, not one that was like Randy Moss or Terrell Owens or one of the best in the league, but like a guy that's like, hey, Pittsburgh knew when that guy strapped on the helmet, he was about to give you everything he had. And when other teams saw him strap on the helmet, they're like, you got to watch out for that guy. So, you know, Hines Ward, Troy Polamalu, you know, those type of guys, that class of guys, those were like my like those are the guys that I resonated with most in my adolescence and such growing up, you know, and learning more about the game.
Did you ever meet them as well, Hines Ward and Troy and those blokes too?
Never in an interview setting, like in like a in like more of a traditional, just like a fan setting. Yeah, sure, I bumped into him there. Yeah, I never really got a chance to meet. I saw Hines Ward, but I never got to like talk to him for my job. You know, like I didn't start like getting into locker rooms until like 2017. So that would have been like Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, those type of guys. So like that was the crew that I first started like talking to. But no, I never got to meet really those guys face to face.
I got a question for you then. What's the atmosphere like from a win in the locker room compared to a loss? Is there a big difference? Is there the energy changing in there?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's always different. You know, when they win, they want to talk. You know, they want to give you all the information. They want to go over stuff. They're celebrating. They're happy. They know that, hey, I proved my worth today. Most likely, like I did my thing. When they lose, you know, it's like walking on eggshells because you don't want to say the wrong thing to make the wrong guy mad and then not talk to you and then not give you the answers that you need to write your story or do your show. So yes, I mean, it's a very big difference. You know, and there's some guys that take losses better than others. But that's part of the sport. You know, like you wouldn't be in it if you were not emotionally invested in the outcome. So that's just natural.
That's like fans as well. I think a lot of fans are emotionally invested too. You know, we sit on the edge of our seat in certain situations. But yeah, I can't even imagine because look, I live in Australia and you know Owen lives in the UK and I know you've done a lot of hard work. But like, are you ever starstruck in there, or are you just kind of used to it now that you're part of the team?
You know, I'm used to it now. I will say there were times where I was like, you know, it takes a minute to adjust to it when you come out of, you know, being a person that like, you know, you grew up watching this team. But you have to shake it fast if you want to be good at your job. Like if I did that for too long, like people would be like, get this guy out of here. Like, you know, like there's been, I won't name names, but there's been reporters who have like gotten autographs from players and like, that's just no, you don't ask for that. You don't, nothing like that. I mean, you don't even see me wear Steelers gear anymore. Like when I was a kid, like you could find I had all sorts of Steelers jerseys, hats, and all this other stuff. When I started covering the team, no, absolutely not. Like, you know, maybe if I'm going, if I have an old shirt, I'll wear it to go to bed sometimes. But like, you know, it's because it's hanging around. But like you got to do your best. And like, yeah, like still, I'm from Pittsburgh. Do I want the Steelers to win? Yeah, sure, of course. You know, that's part of it. But you learn to detach yourself. Like when I watch a game, you know, like when you guys watch a game, you're probably cheering, jumping up and down. When I'm watching a game, I'm using the press box and I'm just sitting there like this.
Yeah. Well, I've actually been there in the Heinz Field for the tour, and I've seen those press boxes, and they're all individually spaced, and you sit there and they write their pads, and that's kind of cool that you guys sit there and you're watching the game like analytically or trying to get different takes on the game. And me and Owen are like cheering of this certain player or this certain tackle. So it's a different perspective as well, isn't it? So I bet you deep down inside you want them to win 100%, right? But I guess you can't show that emotion all the time.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm from Pittsburgh. I want the Penguins to win. I want the Pirates to win. I want Pitt to win. I want all the Pittsburgh things to win. That's where I'm from. Like, you know, there's that sense there. But like at the end of the day, like I'm not crushed by the Steelers losing. Like you know, that was that. I mean, like I kind of started to grow out of that. Like I'd say around 2016, like when I was getting the job. But like, you know, when they lose, it's just like you know, oh well, that happened. Like it was really funny. They didn't lose this game, but like it was the end of the 2018 season. And the Steelers needed to win, and they needed the Browns to beat the Ravens for the Steelers to make the playoffs. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, if they make the playoffs, that's great for them. But then I can't go to this wedding in Thailand that my friends have invited me to, and I really want to go to. And so when they beat the Bengals, but then the Ravens beat the Browns, the Steelers were out of the playoffs. I was like, let's go! I'm going to Thailand. Like I was, and I didn't. And it's like at the same, like I don't wish ill upon them, but it's like, you know what? this is a game, and I got personal stuff that I got to take care of, and so separating those is absolutely part of the responsibility there. So yeah, I mean, sure, part of it is the deep down, like when you're sitting there, like you hope they win over they lose, but when they lose, you're just like, oh well, that happened.
That's a good mindset. I wish some fans would have that. The fans would have the same kind of thought process, because every game, if you lose the first game, you just move on to the next one. That's what I'm kind of like too. But I'll cheer them on anyway. If they're 0-17, if they're 1 and whatever, I always cheer them on. So, but it's good to hear your insight for that, isn't it, Owen?
I mean, it's part of being a reporter. You can't be invested. Like they even say before every single game, if you cheer in the press box, you will be removed. And like
it's meant to be quiet in there, right?
It's supposed to be quiet. You can crack jokes, you can do stuff like that, but like, yeah, like if you stood up and said "woo," like they'd be like, "Get your ass out of here!" Like they just wouldn't. They don't want. They're like, they don't want no amateur stuff. They don't want no fan bloggers. And that's why one thing I encourage a lot of people: if you wanna be serious about this, and like you guys are different. You're in other countries and everything. But if you're a local fan who wants to turn into a local writer, you gotta drop the fan stuff. You gotta approach from an analytical standpoint, and still like you can in your own space, like in your house, you can have Steelers stuff hanging up, you can do all that, but don't let it bleed into your work. Don't let it bleed into your public life, because when you start doing that, then people look at you and they're like, they're no reporter, they're just a fanboy.
Fair enough.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. It's an interesting take. I think because that shows the difference between sort of the fan websites that report on the Steelers and guys like yourselves on Locked On and all that. So you talk about talking to the players. One of the most interesting players I always think to be interviewed is Najee Harris. How do you find Najee to talk to, and what do you think of his interview style that he uses with the press?
I mean, I think Najee is a very smart man who knows when to turn it on and when to turn it off. I think initially when he got to the NFL, he was a little bright-eyed, and he was like, man, like everyone seems very friendly, and I'm pretty good at this, so they don't have anything bad to say to me right now. But I think last year, because last year, whenever he spoke, he gave us everything we wanted, and we talked to him for the longest because he would just keep going, and it was a lot of fun, and he seemed to have fun with us. So, I get along very well with Najee. Some people don't, but I think most people do. But I will say, like last year, when Steve Levy, misstated his life story, Najee was very upset about that. He was just like, "This isn't right. Like, why are you guys just making up things about my life?" And it was very unfortunate for like people like Brooke Pryor of ESPN, who, she did a great story on his background that was accurate and truthful, and Najee had no problem with that. But because Steve Levy, someone who's not even doesn't come to the Steelers locker room because he says stuff like that, it's it made Najee look at the press a little bit differently. So I think Najee's big thing is that he wants to do his job, and he's okay with having fun, but he also knows that, when you're dealing with the press, you got to be careful. You got to watch what you say. If you say the wrong thing or say something that may not even be wrong in your own mind, but could be twisted the wrong way, you open yourself up to a lot of negativity sometimes.
Definitely, yeah. I think obviously the big thing obviously coming up now is obviously Steelers training camp at Latrobe and at St Vincent College. How important do you think it is, Chris, for them to actually be back at St Vincent College and Latrobe this year? Given obviously we've missed it, the Steelers have missed it for the last 2 years. How important is it for them to be back there?
I really think that St. Vincent is good for the nostalgia. It's good for the tradition and all that. I think there's some element that helps develop maybe a little bit of sense of brotherhood. But like, honestly, I think the Steelers are professionals enough. They could hold that at Heinz Field. They could hold it at, their own training facility. They'd be fine doing it anywhere. And in fact, I actually thought that Heinz Field was a better location for them because they had a lot more things on hand. It was closer to their practice facility. It was closer for for most Pittsburghers. For Latrobe, it's an hour and a half out, depending on what part of the city you're coming from. And it's great for people out in Latrobe, and it's great if you're traveling and you get to see something. But for me, like when I as a person, like if I was a fan, I live in the east end of Pittsburgh in Homewood. It was a 15-minute drive to Heinz Field. It's an hour and a half drive to Latrobe. And so I'm just like, I've always felt like, hey, there's a romanticism about Latrobe because it's special and it's historic and all that. Personally, I liked it when it was in Pittsburgh because it was something you could zip to, zip back from, and be cool. And you're right in the middle of Pittsburgh. Like if you're a fan, when you're done with it, you could go explore Pittsburgh. Like Owen and Mark, if you were in town and you wanted to check things out, you could just walk right out and you're in the middle of Pittsburgh. But if you're in Latrobe, you walk out and you're in the middle of nowhere.
So Latrobe's nowhere. It's literally just a college in nothing.
It's at St. Vincent College, which is just in a lot of rural area in Western Pennsylvania. So I mean, like there's stuff around there, not a lot. There's stuff, but like in Pittsburgh, when you walk out of Heinz Field, there's the North Shore, there's downtown, there's the South Side, there's the Strip District, Lawrenceville, and all these things that you could just be doing with your time, and like you wouldn't have enough time in the day to do all of it. So like that's out there. So I mean, again, nothing against the trope because I like being out there, like it's fun, but I've always felt like it would be more simplistic and easier for the Steelers to do it at Heinz Field or somewhere in the city rather than do it way outside of the city. But again, the Steelers are all about tradition. They've always made that clear. That's why as long as they can, they will do it in Latrobe.
Well, even for us as like international fans too, there's a lot of fans here in Australia, a lot of fans in UK. For us to get over there, I tried getting to the Hall of Fame, and I thought I did get there eventually because a mate drove me, but I thought in my mind, oh, you just get a bus from somewhere. No, it turns out, no, I know. I know. It took me. I looked at the schedule, and it was like 3 buses to get there. And I said to myself, that's 3 buses. That's 3 problems. Because if I miss any bus, I am stuck out wherever I am. Right. I ended up talking to my good mate who was working at the hotel, and I said to him, any chance you want to go to the Hall of Fame tomorrow if you got the day off? He had the day off. He said, oh, I can't tell my work, but I'll drive you. And we just, because I had a good relationship with him along the, 7 days I was there, whatever. And I did get to the Hall of Fame. But for international fans, as myself and Owen, like going to Latrobe, I think it would be quite difficult to get there unless you'd have to hire a car, right, to go that far.
I mean, you should probably rent a car. Yeah, you should definitely. I would say if you're not bringing your own car, if you're international, you should rent a car, drive out there, do it that way. Because if you're doing an Uber or a Lyft or a taxi or anything like that, it's a haul. But I would say rent cars, find a way that you can also control your own time, because when you're out there, you're out in the middle of rural country. There's a lot of farms around you. It's not like there's a bunch of bustling city life that there's going to be a lot of traffic from, that you can just call up a car on Uber or Lyft and have them appear right in front of you. So my suggestion is when you're out there, make sure you bring a car with you. You can control when you leave, when you arrive, all those types of things. Because that's gonna help you speed up your process. Because the other thing, Steelers training camp is only like a few hours in the day. You as a fan, you can't just be there from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. You can get there early and do some of the activities they have, but the practice itself is only about like 2 or 3 hours that's observable to the public. And outside, if that's all you came to see, you better find something else to do. Otherwise, you're gonna have a lot of downtime.
So I've been to Pittsburgh 3 times, right? Since like 2016, I've been the game, Steelers versus Ravens, but Owen hasn't been yet. When Owen does get a chance, I always say, calling it home, going home, right? Pittsburgh's my home, going home. What does Owen need to do? You're a true Yinzer, like you live there, you're a Pittsburgher, right? What does Owen need to do? What does he need to do in the city, and what does he need to go in? I know you go in at Primatis, but what's the overall thing to get Owen excited right now to when he does get there? What does he need to do?
One thing I tell people is that Primatis is fine. It's good. It's enjoyable, but it's the tourist move. You don't do Primatis if you want to actually see Pittsburgh. You want to go around. You want to see the things that are authentic to the city. William Penn Tavern is my watering hole. As I love that place. It's in Lawrenceville. They have the best wings in the city. They're in Lawrenceville. It's a great spot. Around there, you got Round Corner Cantina. You got all these other spots there. Lawrenceville's a hopping spot. You can go to the Strip District. Just check out the markets there, because there's a lot of people that are just selling Steelers gear, Penguins gear, all sorts of Pirates gear, groceries, different events going on. That's a great place to check out. Mike's Beer Bar in the North Shore. They have an amazing beer selection, and the steak on a stone is an awesome deal. And just bouncing around Market Square and downtown, I think it's a fabulous time. That's the thing. Pittsburgh has a lot of places that are very walkable, enjoyable. So I always tell people to go to Will Penn Tavern. There's Bigham Tavern in Mount Washington. There's Mike's Beer Bar on the North Shore. There's the Warren downtown. That's a really great sushi place. There's a lot of different stuff. If you're ever, one place I tell people to watch the game too is that if you're ever in the North Shore and you can't like get into the game for some reason, go to like McFadden's and you will see the yinzers of yinzers watching those games and losing their minds and getting drunk and being ridiculous. If you want that authentic experience, that is part of it. But yeah, I mean, there's Pittsburgh. That's the cool thing about Pittsburgh nowadays is that there's a lot to do. So I suggest when you get there, make sure that all those things are on your list. Hit those neighborhoods. Shady Side is nice. Squirrel Hill is really nice. There's a lot of different places that you can get to there.
Such a great place because I like even one of my favorites was going to Pamelas, the American.
Oh yeah, Pamelas. I was just thinking drinking places, but yeah, Pamelas is. I just had Pamelas this morning. Like I love Pamelas. Yeah, it's the best. I get the short stack of pancakes with a side of bacon, and I'm a happy person. I also like to do their bacon, egg, and cheese omelets. Fantastic. I love Pamelas.
We got July 4th coming up for you guys, right? And happy 4th of July and stuff like that. But that's to me is like true American. That when I went there with my dad and my mate, true American culture is Pamelas. I don't know. It's just something about it. It's just the eggs and the potatoes and just
it is
everything.
Classic.
Coffee. Yeah, man. It was cool when I was in there. I know we're talking too much about food, not Steelers, but that to me is Pittsburgh. And I was like, and then he's like, oh, it just go to Pamelas. I'm like, well, what is it? He's like, oh, it's pretty good. And I was like, I'm blown away because that to me is Americana. That's what I see.
When Barack Obama came to Pittsburgh in 2007 or 2008, when he was first running for president, he came to Pamela's and he said, these are the best pancakes in the country. And so I always tell people, you got to go to Pamela's when you come to Pittsburgh. Some people don't like it. Some people think it's Kelly O's is better, DeLuca's is better. I'm like, nah, son, I've been to all them places.
I loved it.
Pamela's is A1.
I'm making notes on all these places you're mentioning, Chris. I'm noting them down, getting ready for my list when I finally get there. Yeah, hopefully later this year or at some point. See, I'd love to take in a Penguins game and taking a Steelers game, obviously. So yeah, noting all these points down. But yeah, if we go back to the Steelers for a minute, I know Mark likes talking food, but getting back to the Steelers for a minute. Going into training camp, Chris, what do you think are the three biggest storylines for fans to watch out for and for everyone to watch out for the Steelers?
Three biggest. Now you're asking me to think. I mean, I guess, of course, the quarterback position. Does Mitch Trubisky live up to the hype? Does Kenny Pickett overtake him? I don't think that he does. But I think Mitch Trubisky, how well does he play? Where does Mason Rudolph fall in it? How does Kenny Pickett do? I think that's the number one storyline that everyone's going to be talking about. You got to see how that plays out. I think the number two storyline is really the offensive line. Can they gel? Can they come together to become a cohesive unit? Does James Daniels really step up as a leader? And does that kind of make the hay for the Pittsburgh Steelers? And I think the number three thing is how do the linebackers play? Because I think that if Devin Bush and Miles Jack are on point, I think the defense is on another level of where they can be this year. Because I think they have solid veteran cornerbacks. They have Minkah Fitzpatrick, Terrell Edmonds, DeMonte KZ. I talked about them I'll talk about them in Monday's Locked On Steelers podcast. And on the defensive front, of course, you got Cam Hayward, you added Ogunjobi, you got Tyson Alulu. You're excited about the Marvin Leal. And by the way, you have these guys, TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith, bringing in every play. I just think the linebacker position, the off-ball linebacker position, that's where if those two guys can really play well, it'll piece the entire defense together, make them an elite unit. And even if the offense is like mediocre, just like decent, like hanging in there, a great defense will propel them and put them in a different stratosphere.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree. I do agree. Going back to the offensive line that you mentioned, one of the concerns that I certainly feel I think the interior offensive line is looking a lot better than last season. The tackles still concern me, and certainly the tackle depth is certainly something that concerns me as a Steelers fan, as someone who obviously talks about the Steelers. Do you think the Steelers need to go out and still add to the tackles, or where do you think we are with that?
I think they can add some depth. I think that they're confident that Chukwuma Okorafor is a better starter than most people give him credit for. I've always said he's a very technically sound right tackle. He's not as physical as you want him to be, but he's often putting his feet in the right place. He's often attacking with his hands. The thing is that I just think he's not physical enough or aggressive enough in the right moments. So I think that those are the biggest problems that he runs up against. But I think Chukwuma Okorafor is fine. I do think that Dan Moore Jr. has to take a step up this year. I think he can. I think him and Kevin Dotson their chemistry is going to be very important to this season. But yeah, I think starting wise, they're acceptable at this point. I think that they can get to the level acceptable, but to be better, I do think they could get there because there's going to be guys who go down. There's going to be injuries and you need to be able to adjust to them. I said a while back, I said last week, I think that they should be looking at Eric Fisher or Tyrell Crosby as backup offensive tackles currently who are just free agents, just hanging out there. You can sign them for cheap, bring them on the roster, and if worst comes to worst, one of them plays and you got some backup. But I'm not sold that like Haig or any of the backup guys they have right now are the answer unless it's like for half a game or a single game. But if you need a guy for 4 weeks because someone, twisted a knee or something, they're going to be in a hurt piece.
100%. Right. Yeah, I agree. I think also what'll help, I don't know whether you agree, Chris, but I think for Chooks as well, having someone of the caliber of James Daniels next to him will also help him up his level of his play, give him more confidence, do you think, going in this season?
Sure. I think James Daniels, they're already calling him the leader of the offensive line. He's been there a couple months. So I think having that guy next to you always helps. And one thing I always tell people, there's always this assumption that, well, when Mike Munchak was with the Steelers, everyone was just great. No, Mike Munchak was great. He was awesome as an offensive line coach, but Marquise Pouncey, David DeCastro, Marcus Gilbert, those were the guys. They were the anchors. You fed off their energy. It helped the Ramon Fosters, the Alejandro Villanuevas, the Chris Hubbards, the Kelvin Beechams. Name a random offensive lineman that played for the Steelers during that time, and if they had those guys around them, they were playing better. I mean, BJ Finney, you saw after he left the Steelers, couldn't link up with the Seahawks, didn't have a good time coming back with the Steelers, but when he was in between David DeCastro, Ramon Foster, and they had that group healthy, he could play well. Better players lift up the average players or even the below average players to higher levels. I think James Daniels can do that. How much can he do that? We'll see when we get to training camp and when the regular season starts.
Chris, is this team better off without Big Ben this year? Do you think?
I think so. And that's not to disparage Ben for all the great things he did. He's a Hall of Fame quarterback. He led them to so many big seasons. He's 2-time Super Bowl champion quarterback, but just where he'd been even before last year, like he never became the elite decision maker. I think he had elite moments in decision making, but he was never consistent enough to step up and win the big moments in the later part of his career. And even when he still had a cannon, even when he still had all the superstars on offense, they'd be down 21-0 in the playoffs. And, and it wouldn't be because, well, he threw great passes and they just weren't caught. It'd be like, no, he didn't do the things he was supposed to do. And I think that was a part of it. But especially last year, his arm was gone. He was doing as much as he could to keep it in contention. He hasn't been mobile for years. I think just having a quarterback who can use their legs, not necessarily all the time, but just use it to extend plays, use it to take the yards that are right in front of them, force defenses to honor the ability of being able to run as a quarterback, as well as being able to call play action, to be able to hit the deeper passes downfield. I think that's going to help this offense a lot more than people expect.
Yeah, I think as well. I think, I think Ike Taylor said in a podcast on his stuff that he does and Believe in Steelers, he said it was 11 versus 10 with Big Ben, but now it's 11 versus 11. I think there's a big change there. And I think we all love Big Ben for what he's done for the organization. Yeah. You can't, but there's time to move on in a new era. And now it's going to be 11 on 11. I really can't wait to see that. If it's Trubisky, if it's Pickett, whoever it is there, right? And you're handing the ball to Najee, and there's a chance now that you can run 5 yards if you are Trubisky. You get a bit of trouble and get a first down. Whereas Big Ben just checked out. Like he didn't want to do that. He didn't want him to get hit, So, but I'm excited for the season. Are you overly? I know you're working in the media, but are you excited for this season in years past?
No, I'm excited for every season. When there's football to cover, it's the best job in the world. You get to cover the best sport in the world, the most exciting stuff, the hits, the high flying, the catches, the receptions. Even when they're not good, it's still like, hey, this is still fun to cover. I'm covering a game. Are you kidding me? Like, this is awesome. So, I had a lot of fun covering Pitt football. Those guys were a lot of fun to cover, even if they weren't great in a year. I was like, you know what? This is still a game. I had fun covering Pitt basketball. I love basketball. So, every year is special to me. I think that every year is the opportunity to cover sports, be paid for it, be able to pay my bills and take care of my loved ones. That's a blessing. So for me, it's, this year there's always excitement to have in a certain year. Like last year, I was really excited to see Najee Harris. I was really excited to see, how the team would grow last year and, what would happen this year. I'm excited to see what's going on with the quarterback position and, just George Pickens take the ascension, all the things I was talking about earlier. There's a lot of talking points. And when there's more talking points, there's more excitement, more things I get to break down and analyze. That's the fun that I really get into.
Man, it's got me excited too. Jesus Louises. You got anything else, Owen?
No, I honestly can't wait to start the new season. Actually talk about some football. In these dog days of summer, it's difficult to come up with stuff to talk about. You feel like you're talking about the same stuff week in, week out, don't you? I think at times. But no, I know we understand. Obviously, Chris is a very busy man, so we're going to let Chris get out of here because I know he's got a television commitment coming up. Chris,
Channel 11, WPXI, final word, baby. Woo!
I thought you were going to say Dancing with the Stars or something like that.
No, I'm not that big. I'm not that big.
Come on.
Someday I'll get there.
So, Chris, before you get out of here, is there anything you want to plug or tell the viewers of the Syndicate about?
Absolutely. Check out the Locked On Steelers podcast. It's daily, Monday through Friday. Get you all your Steelers updates. We're on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, YouTube. If you watch this on YouTube, make sure you're watching Locked On Steelers as well. You can also read my work at SteelersNow.com, where I'm breaking things down with Alan Saunders, Nick Faribault, and our team of writers and reporters that are at the Steelers facilities every day when the season is going. So do check me out there. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques and check out all my work there. It's another way to check me out. And hey, you'll even see some of the times when I'm on the final word when I'm posting there.
Fantastic. Yeah, I can definitely. I can definitely recommend all that. I always Locked On is always one of my first listens, and as Mark knows, I have to start work early in the morning, and I always have my headphones in and listen to Locked On as I'm working. Gets me through the start of my shift, Chris.
I'm glad to help people out. Hey man, there's people that help me out, man. Like Adam Crowley's podcast back in the day when I was working before I had a podcast to do. He was a person that I listen to all the time. The Dan Levitar podcast is another one that I listen to. So I get it. And hey, that's the other thing. Like if whoever you wake up with, whoever it is, as long as it's getting you through, we appreciate it as the content creators that you wake up with us. So, if you're a fan of the Steelers Syndicate podcast, it's awesome that you do that and you support these guys with that. You just find who entertains you, find who gets you thinking and gets you through your day.
That's bloody brilliant. Yeah. Well, we had Wes on here too, and I know you've worked with Wes before, and that's fantastic too. So it's good. Me and Owen are very thankful for you to come on our show and take your time. So hats off to you. And if I was with you in person, I'd buy you a beer. And I don't know how many beers you'd have, but I'd have a few and see how it goes. But
listen. I told Owen this on Twitter. Y'all don't know how law school grads drink. Like we had to drink through our pain, through all the thousands of pages. You had to read thousands of pages a night, and sometimes the only sweet relief was your beer, your whiskey, whatever you had on hand. Shoot, I got a whiskey glass right next to me. It's empty. I'm not
you're Americans. You guys can't drink. I went over to America a few times.
Please, you think we can't drink? Come to Pittsburgh next time you hear Mark. You hit me up. I'm gonna take you to Mike's Beer Bar. I'm gonna show you what's what, sir.
Now I'm getting excited and nervous at the same time.
That could be an interesting competition. That Chris versus an Australian versus an Englishman.
that'd be a lot of fun, guys.
I'd be out first, I'd say, because we talk a big game in Australia, but I've seen Americans drink. You guys just go hardcore. It's like you go into a zone where no one else matters except the beer in front of you.
Victory at all costs, man. We may not be driving home, but we're going to win the
game. All right. With that being said, guys, thank you for checking out the Pittsburgh Steelers Syndicate and the Syndicate podcast. And thank you, Chris Carter. And thank you, Owen, for coming on and helping out with the co-host and doing stuff what we're doing. We're having so much fun here. We can't wait for the season. But thanks, Chris, mate. That was fantastic. And hopefully in the future we can work together if we get time again. So thanks, mate.
Thank you, Chris.
All right. See you later. Here we go, Steelers.
Here
we go.